It's exciting to see how powerful the HEC can truly be when the community can do the impossible, and none can really encapsulate this better than the Skullgirls community. Skullgirls was truly the little game that could, and with the recent announcement of Annie, a character who people long thought would never get in the game, actually being added this year, despite a long troubled history in its development, is honestly a testament to the power of the HEC. Let's start this story with the game itself. Skullgirls is an indie fighting game. For anyone who doesn't know, creating a fighting game is a death sentence for any indie team. Fighting games are hard to make because the standards are high. If you make an okay fighting game, or even a good fighting game, it doesn't really stand a chance in the eyes of the HEC. It has to look good, it has to play good, it has to feel good. And well, let's just say the first version of Skullgirls with a large S, didn't really fit that description. Meet Alex Ahad, also known as 08. You probably have seen his art somewhere before. He started Skullgirls as a little side project in 2000, and while he would continue to work on Skullgirls for years, with the help of others in music and programming, it didn't go so far until Alex met a programmer named Mike Zelmond, also known as Mike Z. We will get to him later. They would get to work on making a new Skullgirls, almost from the ground up in 2008, using Mike Z's Z engine, creating the base for the Skullgirls that we have today. Now that they had the base, the next thing they had to do was to get money. Animation isn't cheap, you know. Unfortunately, that's when things become complicated. The timeline is pretty long, but to explain it better, I'll split it into 3 eras: the Reverge Lab Era, the Lab Zero Era, and the Hidden Variable Era. Skullgirls is a cursed game. The game itself has had a very complicated history when it came to publishing and development, including a lot of companies that would explode one by one. But let's continue the story with Reverge Labs, the newly created studio that would take in Alex and Mike, finding the funding and distribution help needed to finish the game from the game's 2 publishers, Autumn Games and Konami. Skullgirls would release 4 years later in 2012 to generally positive reception. I guess it's time to actually explain what Skullgirls is. Well, it's a teen fighter that takes after Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in many ways. And though it came after Marvel vs. Capcom 2's sequel, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, it handled improvements to the gameplay system in a completely different style. While Marvel vs. Capcom 3 focused on how top tier characters in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 played, and created a game based on that, Skullgirls was focused on improving Marvel vs. Capcom 2's formula with their own ideas. Like adding custom assist, where you can make any non-super command an assist. A ratio system, where you can choose to play as 1, 2, or 3 characters, with health and damage adjusted to keep the game fair. An anti-infinite system that would detect infinite loops and allow the player getting hit a chance to burst. And online play using GGPO rollback. Yep, rollback is pretty old. That may sound like it should work, but marketing a game to people dissatisfied with a sequel isn't a strong enough selling point. You need something more extraordinary. And they did. with Skullgirls' biggest feature, hand-drawn animation. Skullgirls looked amazing, pure and simple, with striking, unique-looking characters, beautiful stage art, and expressive animations that would go beyond even Darkstalkers. Not to mention the music stylings of Michiru Yamane, who wrote much of the music of Castlevania. With all that, wrapped in an old-timey 1940s era jazz cinema aesthetic, Skullgirls would become one of the top-selling games on Xbox Live and PlayStation Network. Skullgirls had made it, despite being an indie fighting game. Skullgirls was very lucky to come out during 2012. Considering the games that would come out that year, Skullgirls was given a rare opportunity to shine. 2012 would bring forth Persona 4 Arena, Blaze Blue Chrono Phantasma, Tekken Tag 2, Street Fighter X Tekken, Soul Calibur 5, Dead or Alive 5, and its sister indie game, Under Night In-Birth. It goes without saying that there was a bit of good timing involved, though the reception wasn't 100% positive, as some would criticize the game for having a sexualized all-female cast and juvenile and unnecessary animations. This would cause frames to get edited out in later patches. Other problems included workarounds to the anti-infinite system, online play lacking several key features, like replays, endless lobbies, and even a spectator mode. And some big gripes, like not having a character move list in the game, or being a team fighter with only 8 characters. Though all of these would be later fixed in patches. But everything was fine until the music industry attacked. Back in 2010, Autumn Games' first publishing job would come in the form of rap-themed karaoke game Def Jam Rap Star, which got him sued by EMI, the 4th largest music company in the world at the time, because of music licensing issues in 2012, and a second time by City National Bank for the money loan they took to use in the first case. To put it lightly, this would be a long legal battle that would freeze both Autumn Games and Konami's assets for the time being, meaning no more money for Reverge Labs to continue development for Skullgirls, so they laid the whole team off. Given that Skullgirls was Reverge Labs' cash cow at the time, they were forced to disband shortly after, the first victim of the Skullgirls curse. But the story doesn't end there. No, as 10 would stay and work on the game, Alex Ahad, Mike Zelmond, Mariel Cartwright, Richard Swa, Jonathan Kim, Earl Gertwagen, Brian June, Peter Bartholow, Vincent DeMonte, and Bradley Hotel, as they would stick with the game and create Lab Zero. It goes without saying, the journey of this new studio wouldn't be easy. You see, Lab Zero's budget was a little tight, maybe even a little non-existent, so they needed to do something as the money from both publishers was tied up in legal trouble. So they did what they could and asked the community for help through an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign held from February 25th to March 27th, 2013. One that did so well that they made $828,768, enough money to add Squiggly, Big Band, Mystery Character 1, Robo Fortune, and Mystery Character 2, along with voice packs and stages. With the 2 mystery characters, Lab Zero will let the community choose who got in by voting from a large list of available choices, leading to Eliza and Beowulf becoming DLC. So now, Lab Zero, with all the money they could ever need, went to work on patches and DLC, slowly creating the Skullgirls that we know today. And like always, something comes up. As they were trying to work on the game and patch the game, Konami would give them massive difficulties with publishing updates as their publisher, which meant that Lab Zero had to let them go. Konami was not happy about this, and took Skullgirls down from all online stores. Now this sounds like an easy fix. Lab Zero could have just put it back up themselves, right? But it's not as simple as that. Because as long as Konami wasn't involved, Lab Zero couldn't name the new store entity Skullgirls. So Lab Zero used a long celebrated fighting game development technique called let's repackage a patch and called a new game. Meet Skullgirls Encore. Same great Skullgirls taste, just without Konami. The update would come first to PC in 2013 because another team named Marvelous was in charge of the PC port, while PS3 and Xbox 360 would get it a year later due to processing. It goes without saying that 2013 was truly the saving grace of Skullgirls. After a year of trouble and hardship, they had the funds needed to grow the game, they cut out the middleman, and Evo 2013 would bring the big chance that Skullgirls was looking for. That year, Evo, what was currently the biggest event in all of fighting games, left a spot open for whichever group could raise the most money for breast cancer. This was the Skullgirls community's chance to get Skullgirls on display on the biggest FGC stage, with a crazy amount of donations that no one would have expected from a non-mainline community. Skullgirls came in second with $78,760, getting beat out by Super Smash Bros. Melee with $94,683, taking the top spot in the last moment. Now, the Evo crew didn't want to let down the community that raised so much money, but they couldn't make a slot for them. So Evo did the next best thing and started holding the indie game showcases, where new studios could show off the new fighting games, with that year having Skullgirls be the main headliner in Versailles tournament. Skullgirls got on the Evo stage, though not in the way they wanted, but it will give them a boost that they needed to push forward. And for the next 2 years, Skullgirls had little trouble at all. As the community grew, the DLC would come out without any big slip-ups, and the enhanced version of Skullgirls Encore, Second Encore, will be released in 2015 to the PS4, and later everywhere else. This version will come with all DLC from Encore built in, as well as fully voiced story mode, challenges, trials, survival mode, and crossplay. This would more or less be the definitive version of Skullgirls, and the story takes a rest here. Skullgirls came an indie success, an indie fighting game success no less, and Lab Zero would go to their next project, Indivisible, a platforming beat 'em up. While Lab Zero was busy with the creation of Indivisible, Autumn Games will hire Hidden Variable Studios to create Skullgirls Mobile, basically a Skullgirls gacha, in order to keep the IP alive and to make money. So I would say it's actually pretty cool that Skullgirls Mobile will actually dive into the backstory of the characters through their story mode. Unfortunately, the curse will also affect the mobile game as well, as Line, the publisher of Skullgirls Mobile, would separate from Autumn Games, so Autumn Games had to release the mobile version again. To say the least, it did its job. They both kept the IP alive and made money, at least until Lab Zero was done with Indivisible, which came out in October 8th, 2019, to pretty good reception. Hopefully with another successful game under their belt, gacha money, and a working pipeline, maybe it was time to get back to work on Skullgirls. They had everything they needed, so nothing could stop them, right? In June 2020, Mike Z screwed up. Now here's a little life lesson for y'all. Everything bad you do that doesn't instantly come back at you normally comes back when you're at your weakest. During the losers quarters of Combo Breaker's Skullgirls tournament, when Mike Z was doing commentary, he made a joke about George Floyd not long after the George Floyd incident happened.
Would it be fair to say that you can't breathe?
It was a poor joke, with even worse timing, and people were not happy. Mike Z would be quickly banned from the event and future events days later. Remember when I said that the bad you do comes back when you're at your weakest? Well, after Mike Z got a lot of flack for the joke, in comes the allegations of generally suspect behavior from TOs, cosplayers, and the people who work with him. Lab Zero took the time to investigate these allegations, and the board requested that he resign. Mike Z would not go quietly, as he had a list of demands that he wanted before he departed, but the rest of the board saw the demands as unrealistically high and potentially illegal, so they rejected it. Unfortunately, Mike Z was the Senate and destroyed the board, becoming the sole owner of Lab Zero, leaving those who did not want to be associated with Mike Z no choice but to leave Lab Zero. And so they did. Now, the story of Lab Zero's recent events caused noise, which caught the ear of longtime publisher and owner of the Skullgirls IP, Autumn Games, who would cut ties with what was left of Lab Zero and transferred all production to Hidden Variable. Unfortunately, the same could not be said for Indivisible, which died with Lab Zero. With the full switchover came promises from Hidden Variable and Autumn Games that 1, they would continue working on Skullgirls, and 2, they intended to work with the employees who resigned from Lab Zero, which would dissolve a few months later. Though it wouldn't be the end for those who left Lab Zero beforehand, as Alex Ahad, the creator of Skullgirls, who left before the actions of Mike Z came to light, is working with Hidden Variable and Autumn Games on Skullgirls, and the others would create their own studio called Future Club. So this is where Annie comes in. On August 14th, 2020, Hidden Variable released a trailer for Annie's introduction to Skullgirls Mobile. People were hyped to see that Skullgirls actually got a new character for the first time in years, even if it was just the mobile version. But it wouldn't stop there, as at the end of the trailer, in big white letters, they announced that Annie was coming to Skullgirls Second Encore the next year, prompting excitement from the Skullgirls community. After years of playing the game, they would finally see something new come from it. But the hype would be short-lived and replaced with fear, as the breakdown Lab Zero happened 9 days later on the 23rd. No one knew what was going to happen for the just announced Annie until the Frosty Faustlings online tournament happened, when Hidden Variable released Annie's second encore trailer. Not only did the community see firsthand that the game they loved and supported for years on end, through situations where any other game should have died, would keep on going, but they were not rewarded with just Annie, but another character. This is why Annie is important, as she is not only a character, but a promise for the active continuation of Skullgirls, the start of a new era of active development. Skullgirls was fueled by the community from start to now, and as long as the community is still kicking, I would say long live them both. Thanks for watching. This took a while to make. I wanted to try my best to get the timeline right, as some things were covered in mystery, legal mess, and dead links. Not to mention I'm not really the best speaker, but I'm learning. I hope you enjoyed the video, and would be so kind to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Even though this is my first real video, I mostly plan to do fighting game and anime content, so if you like at least one of those, then you're at the right place. So, have a good night everybody. Okay, a little update. While I was making this, I kinda didn't want to add it in because this took way too long. to make. Hidden Variable announced that they're doing a fighter pack with 3 other characters. So yeah, the Skullgirls launch party never ends.